Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of My Pot 5. We are going inward again, similar to how we did last month. We are bringing on another one of our hosts and friends of the show to break down their Pot 5s. We had Daniel last month and got to learn all about the things that influenced him. And this time, we're bringing on friend of the show, Veronica Deeds. Veronica is a Los Angeles-based actor. She's part-time co-host of the show and a freelance film producer here in the area. Veronica is so near and dear to my heart. Her and her family are such a big support system for me, some of my best friends, and people that I very much love and rely upon. So let's get into it. Here's our chat with Veronica Deeds. Hello, everyone. We are back. We have such an exciting episode with the lovely friend of the pod. You know her. You love her. Veronica Deeds. Veronica, thanks so much for joining.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course. Audience, we've mentioned it on a couple episodes before, most recently on our anniversary episode, but one of the cool little tidbits about what we did here is before we actually first started releasing the show, we did a test episode with Veronica as our first guest that never saw the light of day.
It was a perfect episode.
It was a perfect episode with tons of flaws and things that we were still trying to figure out. It was the first time we had ever set up audio, so there was like audio issues. It was the first time I'd ever done an interview of this fashion, so it wasn't perfect. And ultimately we learned, hey, that was a learning experience and moved on and got better as we have grown. But it was important to me to spend the time to learn all about Veronica's Pop 5 and all the things that inspired her and have made her who she is. So Veronica.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining. But you know how this goes. Mm-hmm. Without comment, without context, can you tell everyone what is your Pop 5?
My Pop 5 are special features on DVDs, Netflix, the original mail-in model, Sex and the City, Selena, both the artist and the movie, and Olivia Wilde.
Olivia Wilde. Yes, I love it. Looking back when you first did this, it's mostly the same.
It's mostly the same.
There's one big change that I think is for the better. I think there's some really exciting things that like I know we have talked about over the years, but now like just getting to really geek out about it is super exciting to me. But before we get into your Pop 5, why don't you tell everyone a bit about your background, kind of where you grew up and how you got inspired and involved in the arts in the first place?
Yeah, so my brother and I were both born in Hawaii, and we are not Hawaiian, but we were both.
This is Alex Deeds, everyone, for people who knows the show.
Refer to his My Pop 5 episode. And then we started moving around so much. So my dad's company transferred him while we were growing up a lot. So
I'm just messing. Go on, your dad's company.
My phone's ringing now. Yeah, and so he got transferred a lot. So we lived in Singapore. We lived in Hong Kong for 5 years. We lived in Mexico City. And then we finally landed in Miami when I was in second grade. And that's kind of the main place we grew up. So if people ever ask me where I'm from, I'm like, I grew up in Miami. And we were there till we graduated high school. And so while I was there is when I started doing theater. I went to a magnet high school that I was focused on performing arts. And so I did theater and dance there. And then I went to college at the University of New Mexico and just kind of kept exploring other production avenues and growing and watching my brother explore his filmmaking, which inspired me to continue after college. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you were young, I know there's sometimes the parents who are very much like, you have to do something and kind of put you in things to kind of learn what your interests are. And then there are those who are just like, let their kids do. And if their kids are interested, they let them, support them and let them do those things. But how is it that you think dance got involved or theater got involved? Was it something that you were put in and enjoyed? Or was it something that you saw and were like, oh, I want to do that. Mom, can I do that?
Yeah, I think it was probably a combination. I know my parents put me in theater when I was younger because I was talkative and I had a lot of energy. And so they were like, here's a kids class, like go, like for no other reason other than this will be good for your energy. Like go explore by. And I just really loved it. And so anything with like arts and performing, I always took to, even if I didn't understand why, or I gravitated towards watching things that included those kinds of elements. But yeah, they supported us just kind of playing and exploring. I mean, even Alex, like filming movies at the house with friends in high school over the course of like a week was just present all the time.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's awesome. I think it's great when you can have those support systems, right? I also think it's interesting to understand like what the catalyst was like, and what was it like that inspired you to want to do those things? Because some kids are thrown into sports and either love them or are like, oh, I got to do this thing because my parents made me. But obviously theater and dance and things were things that you kept doing and wanted to keep doing.
Yeah. And that was kind of the start of seeing that. And then obviously as you get older, you see other kinds of possibilities or careers or paths that you didn't know existed within the arts. And so that just kind of kept building on itself a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned you went to a magnet art school, so to speak. So I imagine that was a lot of the population there had like that focus and that love for those things. Do you think that was helpful to have a community of like-minded people when you were inspired by those things? Or do you think you missed some of the typical Hollywood high school experience that you kind of see on TV?
No, I mean, because I think it was the best of, but I don't think I really missed out on much. I mean, our school was still like a big public school. You know, it wasn't like a tiny fame school. It just, everyone happened to be focusing on something different, but it was still a normal public high school. So that was still fun. And then being in the theater program was great. And we would do competitions and we would go to like, there's like a district competition where all the high schools prepare scenes or numbers or solo songs or ensemble scenes or whatever it is. And you go and you compete. And then you go to like a big state competition that's like Tampa's overrun by all of these theater kids. And so that all was so exciting. And you see, I mean, at least for me, so many crazy good people, even within my own department that were honestly just like better than me or like more or knew more of who they were on stage. And so I would just kind of like either defer or watch because it was so fascinating. So that was a huge experience in high school, but I still had a normal high school experience. Yeah.
Do you remember being on stage, you know, whether it was through those competitions or just theater and your upbringing in general, like a moment or a role or something, performance, a show where you were like, ooh, I like this and I want to keep doing this? It
was probably with the competitions because our like big musical that we would do at the end of the year at school, I don't sing. And so I was never like the front person of any of those. I was either doing small roles or in the chorus or just, you know, doing stuff like that. So that was never a huge moment for me. But the competitions were like one weekend was a performance-based competition. The next weekend was a tech-based competition. And the first weekend I would always do a monologue and you had to do like 2 contrasting monologues. And then I did like duet scenes. And that was where I was like aware of the fact that you can do theater and it doesn't have to be musical theater because I was just doing straight acting. Yeah. So getting to explore that was huge. And we would do large ensemble scenes. And so those probably informed me a little bit more than doing it in school in a big like musical production at the end of the year, which were fun. They just weren't that's not where I was ever going to shine. Sure.
Yeah. And they're so different. I think the way you even perform in those 2 different types of mediums is so different. Yeah. It makes sense. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Your Pop 5. This was a new addition in comparison to your first one. But I wanted to start here because it's something that was also like just so important in my upbringing as well. Yeah. And that is Selena, both the movie, the artist. Tell me about your intro to Selena, why you love her and why she's here on your Pop 5.
I am also shocked that this wasn't on my original test episode Pop 5. I was like, what was I like, how, I don't understand how it just did it. It slipped my mind completely to add it. But anyway, we're here now with Selena. So my first introduction to, I think she passed away, maybe it was 97, I want to say.
I will live fact
pause
check you.
For looking it up.
She passed away in 95.
95, okay. So I was born in 91. So growing up while she was alive, I wasn't aware of her until like probably a lot of people maybe my age, the movie came out. And I was at home and VH1 was playing the movie with J-Lo and I had no idea who she was. And I remember, obviously it's an amazing movie. So I remember just like being hooked on it and I loved the music. And then I started exploring more about the actual artist Selena. And I loved that they obviously kept her voice in the original movie, because then when I heard her music, it was like I knew it all. It was the same. But what hooked me into that movie was there's a scene where Edward James Olmos is driving in the car with Selena and Avi, and they're freaking out because Selena's going to do a show in Mexico. For people that don't know, she's from Texas and she's Mexican American, and she did not grow up speaking Spanish in her home. She had to kind of learn Spanish as she started singing in Spanish. And so they were freaking out because they were like, you're going to have to speak to all these Mexican reporters. You don't know Spanish. Well, they're going to see right through you that you're not a fluent speaker. They're going to rip you apart for this kind of thing. And he was like, like, we're Mexican American. And he's like doing this whole thing where he's like, we're not Mexican enough for Mexicans and we're not American enough for the Americans. Like, it's exhausting. We have to do it all. And so like his little like monologue where he's panicking about this, I remember being like, ooh, something in that just like it stuck with me. Like it hit me because I am also Mexican American. I am half white, half Mexican. And I remember thinking it just resonated with me and I didn't even realize why. And I think it was obviously getting older. It was because of that. It was having the weird identity crisis of not Hispanic enough for Hispanic people, not white enough for white people. And then especially exploring that into casting and acting and having like a weird, what are you? Like, what do you, what can you do for me with it? It's just, that really hit me a lot in the movie. And then her music is just so good.
It's so good.
And so obviously after the movie, and then I kept, obviously she stayed in my zeitgeist of my own personal like favorite people. So just listening to all of her albums and listening to her Spanish albums, and then even me getting better at Spanish by memorizing her songs in Spanish. It's so good.
It's incredible. Yeah. And heartbreaking, right? Like I think her story for the audience who doesn't know, she had a bit of a tragic passing where, someone in her internal camp who was embezzling money from her during a confrontation ends up shooting and killing her, right? And it's just like so heartbreaking. The movie captures it so well. I feel bad for that actress because she's forever known as
I know, Yolanda Salazar.
the one who killed Selena, even though she was just acting.
Yeah, she did Real Women Have Curves too, the movie. And I was like, that's not you. I see you, Yolanda.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it's kind of both the scene that she called upon, and it's kind of just relevant towards what we just talked about this past week with like our Father's Day episode, but him being such like a stern father, but I think such a loving father throughout it. He's very much the possessive, you can't be wearing a bustier on stage, but at the same time, it's all born out of just love for his daughter, so I think his character is just so good in the movie. But also, the music is just so pivotal. Like the movie came out in 97, so I was young, and I also have memories of just like being in my mom's car singing Bidi Bidi Bom Bom or Bailes de Cumbia or any of those songs, and just being like lost, like thinking she was just the coolest.
And then if you see her videos performing live, like the way she like commands an audience, the way she dances, and like she has a song called Que Querías, which is my favorite song by her, and it's like mariachi style, but it's kind of like giving it to an ex-boyfriend. Like there's like, it's basically just like, you think you can come back here and like win me over? Like, no, like, what are you thinking kind of thing. And she would always pick a guy from the audience in every show and bring him on stage and sing at him like he's her ex-boyfriend. And so she would just like get in their faces and like point, and they would just be like laughing and like having to stand there and take all of this like yelling that she's doing in her song. So it's as a performer, she's so good.
Yeah, phenomenal. I think one of the things that like sometimes doesn't get enough praise too is like, I think J-Lo did an incredible job too in the movie.
Perfect job. Oh my God.
Like I think it's just like blown away. Even in like the stage performances for sure. Like she kills it and does like captures that performance well. But I think like just a lot of the like romance that you fall in love with her and Chris's role, or even like them arguing and eating like Doritos in the tour bus. Like there's moments you're just like, dang, she's like killing this performance.
I want to say she was nominated for a Golden Globe for that, but she was just that's when she decided she wanted to become a singer, was after she did Selena. Because she obviously lip synced all the songs, but the only part she actually sang was when they did Como la Flor, the slowed down one to like calm the audience.
Yeah.
So the first part of that she sang, where she's doing like that part, and so and that's when she was like, I think I want to explore singing.
And then Jenny from the Block.
And then J-Lo was born. But then they did like an anniversary performance for Selena at like the Latin billboards. I forget what year. And she sang a whole Selena medley, and the band was all the Dinos. So it was Chris and it was AB and it was Susie all playing. It's you should watch it. It's a really good video. Yeah. But it's J-Lo doing it.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple things in like terms of like identity and trying to understand all of that. I'm imagining, when this came out, you were also still very little. So do you think this is just a relationship that you've had with it over the years, or you think you felt all of those things even at that age?
I think it's over the years. I think little things happen throughout that and then you get older and you're like, oh, that's why I had my feelings hurt, or that's why I was embarrassed you don't realize it in the moment. I didn't know at the time that I felt like caught in between two identities, and there's so many like people that are mixed and biracial and all of those things. So like, it's not like it's not like I was an uncommon kind of person, but like it messes, I think, with how you view yourself. So it definitely like little things, happen throughout the years, whether it's like, I'm trying my best to speak Spanish and people can notice in the same way that it's not perfect fluent Spanish, or so, make a comment like in jest about how like, that's fine because you're half white or whatever. But then like going into like casting rooms or auditions, like for commercials, and you go in and it's like, you're in a room with all these native Spanish speakers. And that's when I would feel like they're going to see right through me. They're going to know. But then you would go into a room that was for mostly like white actors, and they're like, well, what are you doing here? Yeah. So it's just, it is kind of like a little bit of a mind fuck in that way. And even like when I did an improv class and I applied to get a scholarship for it, and I wrote an essay kind of about that. It was about two things, and how even my last name, people, when I moved to LA, told me I should change it to make it more like, Hispanic, palatable. And I'm like, so you want me to like spoon feed people what I am? Which is, it's insane to think that even now, people still have to do that. Like, people are aware that there are different groups of ethnicities and identity. So like, it just seems so outdated to me for people to give me that advice. So like, my last name is Deeds. And so they were like, a couple of people that were a little old school told me that I should change it to something that's more ethnic or more Hispanic. But 10 years ago, if you were coming to LA and you had a Hispanic last name, people were changing them to something more neutral. And so it's like, which is it? And like, I just never bought into the fact that you had to do that now. And I never took that advice. I would hear it and I'd be like, thank you for your opinion. But I don't buy it. I don't buy that people can't recognize that everyone's different. Right. So in that sense, I think, and especially with the Spanish speaking aspect of it, that I still struggle with. Like, I'm fluent and I'm conversational, but you can definitely see through that it's maybe not always correct, or I stumble on words. So that's an insecurity of mine, just like in a normal day-to-day way. So that stuck with me from Selena. But yeah, all those little things, like as I got older and it crystallized like all the what I was feeling that I didn't realize I was feeling.
Where do you think you are today with it? Do you think it's still a struggle for you, or do you think it's something that you have confidence in, just, I'm me?
Yeah, I don't think it's as much of a struggle because I'm older, and I've met so many people that are even more specific kinds of people or different than I am, where I'm like, this is nothing compared to like how like multifaceted other people are, Sure. And so I don't really struggle with it at all anymore, especially in acting. Like, it is what it is. So I don't struggle with it in that sense. I do struggle with it still if there's like an underlying comment made. Like one example is someone mentioned to me at a job that they really needed to hire more people that were women of color. And they said it kind of in like a casual, like friend chit chat way. And I said something like, oh, well, I'm here, so that's good. Like, I just kind of like joked back. I was like, so you don't have to worry too much because like I work here at the time. And they were like, well, that doesn't really count. And I remember just feeling like it just stung so bad. And I was like, so then all those feelings came back of like, so I'm not Hispanic enough for you, or I'm not this enough for you. And I remember my feelings got really hurt unintentionally. This person had no idea that they even said it in a way that stung me and brought things up in me that identity crises that I had little fireworks of it throughout my life. Yeah. In those senses, sometimes I still struggle with it internally. And then I just remember like, it's fine, whatever. Like they, but so those moments are still tricky, but.
Yeah, it's still pretty ugly though too,
Yeah, I was like, what does that mean?
Like, well, why not? Explain to me why it doesn't count.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I would like you to put it into words for me.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
But anyway, but Selena's a queen and I'm obsessed with her. And she's perfect in every way. And Que Creías is a perfect song.
Yeah. How did you feel about the series?
So I had mixed feelings about the series. I loved it just because naturally I would have loved it. And I was like, I'm going to watch this no matter what criticisms are coming from it. I thought the actress who played her did a great job. Yeah. Even if she had certain things that didn't match visually was one of the main critiques I think people had about it. But I thought she did a really good job with the performances, with her talking style, like all of these things. And I just thought it was a fun show. I liked that it explored more than the movie did. It explored more specific moments in her life as far as like before she made it or when she was trying and doing like these smaller shows, and it just you're able to flesh out more than the movie was able to. So I thought all the actors did great. I loved it. I'm sure there's critiques about it, but I wasn't watching it to like really try to like be like, that's not accurate. And she would never, it was a fun show for me because it was based around Selena, and I liked watching them, all the making of the performances. So I thought it was fine.
Yeah, that music is still so much just a part of the core of who I was growing up, and like in New Mexico as well. I don't know how much you experienced when you lived there, but like it's at every event, cumbia music in general. So like it's just the core of family weddings and graduations, and even to this day, like that's going to be played at almost any event you go to back home. So,
totally. Yeah. It's just so good.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on here, Veronica, into your next one here. I know this is something that's been important in your family. Movies have been important in your family. Even to this day, I still have movie dates with your brother, and, moments of just even watching movies with your parents in their living room and at their house. And so tell me all about the origins of the original Netflix subscription model and DVDs and your relationship with that. Tell me why that's here on your Pop 5. Netflix, the original DVD version.
Yeah. So this is probably what I should have made Rabbit Proof Fence in my original interview. This is a more specific title for that. I mean, we would obviously growing up go to the local video store before it was bought out by Blockbuster. And then we had to go to Blockbuster. So we would still do all of those things and walk around and pick movies based on the new release wall or based on the cover. And it was a very special moment in memory that I have, is going to the video store. And then when Netflix came out with their, you can get mailed either 1 or 3 DVDs and put them on your queue. And here's the library of things you can look through. I didn't ever go with the computer to look through it, but my dad created an account. And so he started exploring that on his own by himself. And so we just started getting DVDs showing up in the mail. And it started at first with just like normal movies we all wanted to see. And it was his account, his queue, he was running it. And then we started getting movies that I think for my dad, he was able to sit down and read about a movie, read maybe the synopsis, do some research on it. And it wasn't as like, pick a movie as like a video store would be. Yeah. He was able to just kind of like sit quietly and analyze and look and see if it looked like a good movie on his own time. So he started getting a lot of movies in the mail that were, to me, I had never heard of, more independent, more maybe obscure to my knowledge, maybe not to adults, but to me, they were movies I would never think to pick out. The ones that stick out to me were like Smoke Signals, Whale Rider, Rabbit Proof Fence, like he got like The Elephant Man and, the black and white version. So all of these movies, and we would just watch it with him on the weekends. And that was super special to me, was when we started exploring more film than we had access to on our own. And they were independent, and my dad was showing them to us. And can't remember if Alex mentioned this, but like we always want to make sure our dad really likes a movie. Like we want his stamp of approval.
Yeah.
And so that was exciting it informed me without realizing what kind of movies he really likes. And he still likes to this day, you know, more independent, more like film festival, smaller kind of movies that don't get released, mass release. And so that was a huge part of my upbringing, was watching movies that he liked. And then as I got older, hearing about movies and renting them and being like, you're going to like this.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to show you this movie. And now it's kind of become fully Alex and I showing him movies that we know he'll like. But I just thought it was so cool when we were younger. He was just getting all of these, some unknown, some more known independent movies and showing them to us and exposing us to that kind of film. I thought it was great.
And around what age was this like at its height for you?
Let me see. I'm trying to think of when the Netflix mail-in models started. It started in 98. So this would have been probably when I was in like anywhere from second to fourth or fifth grade.
Wow.
That this kind of experience and like ritual of renting stuff and getting it delivered in the mail from Netflix was going on. Probably the most like formative part of it was in that time frame.
It's interesting because I think like as a kid, especially at that age, your friends are talking about SpongeBob and Clock Stoppers or whatever Disney Channel original movie is coming out, you know, and you're coming to school and be like, oh, I watched Rabbit Proof Fence this weekend, you know? What do you think it was about like your family that like made you interested in those types of things and not maybe being like, Dad, can't we just watch SpongeBob or something like that? You know?
I don't know what it was, because if I look back, I mean, Alex liked Cartoon Network. Like he liked like Dexter and Cat Dog and Courage and all of those like things. I was never huge into, and I'm still not like SpongeBob. I just never really cared about it. I liked Rugrats and I liked things like that, and Full House and Step by Step and all of those things that I would watch after school. And of course, Disney Channel original movies. Let's make no mistake. That was a Saturday night ritual.
Yeah.
But, I also think it has a lot to do with moving around so much when we were younger. We weren't really going over to other kids' houses in a regular way until we were in Miami. Up until then, it was just kind of like hanging out at home and then moving again. And so we were just kind of exposed to, I guess, things that were more adult, not in a bad way, just like, you know, like certain movies and things like that. So I think that's what it was. And I would try to bring stuff up at like sleepovers, you know, that were maybe these movies that other people hadn't seen. But if we had friends spend the night at our house, we would watch movies, and Alex and I would be up all night with them, like showing them movies. And so, yeah, I think it's probably just a product of just kind of like Alex and I only really being around each other and our parents for the first part of our lives. Yeah. For the most part, we just enjoyed those kinds of things more than others.
Yeah, and I think
except for Disney Channel, those are perfect.
Have to have Luck of the Irish ready to go.
Smart House, Luck of the Irish. Double team.
Double team. Yeah. What I think is, to move it back, I think to what you were saying, like what I think is still beautiful is that's still the core of what your family does here even today. You know, it's just like movies are still at the core of your guys' just love and quality time together. Which I think 100%. Is so awesome.
I mean, Alex will show them movies all throughout the week. If I go stay with them, it's like, okay, what movie are we watching? Or here's a movie I really need you to see, or I really want to show you. And here in LA, there's like the Laemmle Theater. I love that theater.
Me too.
I mean, so many theaters luckily here show independent, like the Los Feliz 3 and like the Vista or the ArcLight when they were open, RIP, and the Laemmle. And so I remember telling my dad, because he was disappointed that they only get mass kind of appeal movies
like
at their
AMC or whatever.
Yeah. And even at the AMCs here, I think sometimes you get more independent stuff because there's a market for it. People are actually going to go see it. Right. And so I told him about Laemmle, and I said, you can pick a day, maybe every couple months, or if there's a movie that I know you'll really like that's playing there, drive down. Matinee. He loves the senior discount. Yeah. He loves free popcorn if it's the day for it. Like, so I told him that, and he did one already where he came down and we watched Drive My Car.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so good. And he just loved the theater. He was so happy. And so I told him, I'm like, you can make this a regular thing. Come down and you'll see these. And when I go up there, like, I'll show him and my mom movies, like Worst Person in the World.
Yeah. Oh.
Was one that I decided that we should all watch because I knew that they would like it. And yeah, so it's still kind of a cornerstone in how we all show love or spend time together or have conversations with each other. Even my siblings, like we're all so into the same kinds of movies and send each other trailers all the time. And my sister and I, if we're able to go to a movie together for one that we like, an indie that we really want to see, it's just like a regular rotation of film.
Well, staying in a similar vein here, Veronica, along the lines of DVDs, on DVDs was the special features option. Tell me all about, here on your Pop 5, special features category of DVDs and what that had an impact on.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Once special features were added to DVDs, you got to see the making of the movie. You got to see it. And of course there were documentaries before. Of course you could see certain things before, in a sense. But now it was like any movie that I watch will have at the very least, a 5-minute featurette at the very least. And if you're lucky, you'll get like 10 featurettes that are like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
And you can see the making of it. I was obsessed with it. I would not, if I watched a movie, there's zero chance I'm taking it out of the DVD player before I watch the special features. You can do director's commentary. You can see how they make it. You can see the set. You can see issues that they may have come across in the production process. You can see outtake, like all of these things blew my mind and made me realize there was more to the industry than just like acting and directing or acting and singing. And, you know, because that's all you really think growing up. You're not aware that there's like, unless you live in LA and you grow up in that industry, that there's like producers and camera operators and studio executives. And you don't realize all of that. And so that was a huge game changer for me. Also, and similar to like Project Greenlight on HBO, which was Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's docuseries on making a movie. Similar to that, it was like I can see all of these things and hear all of these terms that I don't know what they mean. And so that was huge when DVDs came out. I'll still buy Blu-rays if it's when I really want to see the special features on. I'll buy them.
Yeah, I think it's something that captivated so many people, both knowing and unknowingly, because I think it's also how they started marketing films so much too. Like whatever new special feature would potentially be on a DVD, it's just like with 27 deleted scenes. You know, you're like, well, now I have to buy this because I can see the 27 deleted scenes. Or if it's a Adam Sandler movie, you know, all the outtakes and bloopers and things like that. Like, those are things you want to see. You want to see them break. You want to see them laugh. But yeah, the director's commentary, I think, is like huge, you know, like understanding what were they thinking when this moment happened. And I remember also just being obsessed. Like some kids' movies would have like games. Like I remember like Shrek had like something in there, like special features of like a karaoke dance party or like a trivia show.
Oh, really?
And so like, yeah, like it was like one thing, like being able to have the remote and like just interact with the movie in some capacity. But yeah, so special. Do you remember any specific movie that you like dove deep on? I know it was probably a lot of them, but anything that like first comes to mind? Yeah,
I mean, it was definitely a lot of them. One that I remember pretty clearly was Walk the Line when it came out.
Oh, that movie's fucking phenomenal.
It's so good. Those special features and seeing the making of it and seeing them singing and seeing how they chose to perform a certain way and seeing it's just like seeing sets and seeing the making of a movie is so fascinating. I can watch it all day. It's so fascinating to me, like hearing people troubleshoot these issues and like so that one sticks out in my mind. But yeah, it was every DVD I watched at that when they came out at that time. I was watching the special features of, for sure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting is
and Rapid Proof. I remember those special features. Yeah.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is that that's not universal, right? In the sense that like people who have that wanting to know more about how things are made or what goes behind the scenes, you know, I think one of the things that's like true about this show for so many of the people that we bring on is just that obsessive nature of just like, oh, I love this and I want to know all there is to know about it, whether it is music and how music is made or films and how they're made, and just the geeking out of I want to know everything in the background, and I'm obsessed with all of that stuff. Yeah, and I still to this day like I like studio tours and things.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I love seeing what
they're
happens
fun.
in the background. Yeah.
And even like Alex, like if I didn't have Alex and I didn't have watching him trial and error making movies, learn more, have all these books on it, have an inquisitive mind about making movies, I'm sure it would have stuck to me in some way, but it definitely informed me a lot more, that I was even more curious. And I would ask him questions about like, well, they tried to do this one shot and they're talking about it in the features and in the featurette that they made, but like, I don't get it. What are they? And he would break it down for me and explain to me. So it was huge. It was the main time that I realized there's like an actual whole industry than just acting, directing.
Yeah.
Like you think it's just so black and white when you're younger.
Yeah. And I think we've touched on it on the show before, but I mean, I think that's also how we connected too, is just your brother's projects and met each other through the things he's doing. And seeing that background also is just like, it's so cool to be like, I didn't know necessarily all the components that make up any of it,
Yeah.
So seeing it was awesome. But I think also what I love about the friendship with both you and your brother is even just getting to talk about, like, when we're watching movies, we're able to appreciate like that because we are aware of the background, like talking about shots or talking about like, oh, I don't know how they did that, and speculating about like the different ways they could have maybe achieved these scenes. Like just talking about the behind the scenes stuff, like even after watching a good movie, it was incredible. And I want to talk about all these like incredible things that they probably had to do to make that happen, or acting performances, or these various different things that like some people are just like, that was a good movie, I liked the story. Like being able to think about all the different components, I think is fun. And it's one of my favorite parts of just like our collective friendship, is just that, being able to talk about it in that way.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, this next one, we've delayed it too long. We already know your obsession with this show. I know you love it so much, and it's been so exciting to hear you win trivia nights for this show. Talk and get hyped about the sequel series for this show, Sex and the City. Veronica, we've waited long enough. Yeah. Tell me about Sex and the City, what you love about it, and why it's so important to you.
So Sex and the City is a fantastic show that I now have an odd encyclopedic knowledge of. Yeah, it's like in my favorite shows, it's like there's like 1A and 1B, right? And like Sex and the City, I don't know if it's A or, I mean, there's like The Sopranos. Yeah, I started watching Sex and the City kind of backwards. Like, obviously I was too young growing up to be allowed to watch it on HBO. And then when I was in high school, I saw the movie, which is probably like sacrilege to watch it with no context at all. Yeah. And I think I had a cousin that told me, you can watch the movie, it'll still be fun for you even if you don't know. Like it's its own story. You're more invested if you know the series, but you can watch it for fun and you'll be fine. So a girlfriend and I went to the mall and we watched it. And I want to say, I forget how old I was, but I know I was in high school. And I was like, well, this was fun. I want to know more. And then I started watching the series, and I would go to Blockbuster and I would rent the seasons on DVD with featurettes. And I just became obsessed with it, especially the early seasons, like seasons 1 to 4. Okay, well, there's only 6 seasons. Right. All seasons are amazing except season 5. So, but like it was just, the writing was so good, I thought. And like looking back, obviously there's things that are problematic about it. Obviously there's things that didn't age well, like any other show. I rewatch it a lot and I'm like, some of it is very cringy now. But I remember I thought the writing of it was so funny and so natural and so conversational. And it was for women. And it was for women talking so openly in a real way at lunch about sexuality and making jokes about it, and in ways that in media, at least back then, you would assume guys do only. And then there's this show where it's like, no, we're only showing women and how women really talk to each other about this stuff and make jokes about it. And so and their acting is just so good. I mean, Cynthia Nixon in that show is just insanely amazing. I mean, they're all amazing. So I just took it and ran with it. My world like opened up a little bit more. You know, every time you experience and watch something that sticks with you, it's like, oh, and it lights something up in you to explore other kinds of media. So that one, it's so good. It's so good. And none of these women are aspirational. They are all have problems of their own. There's a lot of things that aren't great about what they do, but it's just the writing, the comedy. It was just such a good show. And I have since now watched it so many times through. I won first place at a trivia night for Sex in the City. So it's so good.
Yeah, I think it's, one of the things you touched on, and there's quite a few things I want to make sure I hit all of them, but was that the characters are not aspirational, but what I think is important is that they were real, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like one of the things you also touched upon is it's like the first time that you see characters on screen talking about things that were potentially culturally taboo,
Yeah.
But it's real. Like, I think the last time we talked about this, you said like, these are conversations people are really having,
Yeah.
Like it's the first time you're seeing something like a real thing happening on TV. And so while these characters are not necessarily people you want to aspire to be, they are people right? And they have problems that the people have and go through. And so you can learn from them, and it feels relatable because it isn't just the prim and proper character that you see on TV.
And not everything is like tied up perfectly in a bow.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, like being a woman and seeing all these women talk about these things, it's true. It's like, these people, or people with their qualities, or you have some of their qualities, and it's just messy, normal conversations that like, maybe you're an amazing friend. And I think I mentioned this last time, you can be an amazing friend and a perfect person and a wonderful partner, but you happen to have cheated on someone once. And like, how do you navigate that? And so like I like it because it is so gray area. But that's what people are really doing.
Life.
People are conflicted all the time with like, if they're a good person, or how they are, or how they feel, or am I obsessing over this too much? And so I like that it didn't shy away from like showing you the messiness of all these women, even if you didn't agree with it. And for me, I hadn't seen anything like that. I'm sure stuff existed in a way of it for other people, but I hadn't seen anything like that at a time where I was like old enough to like compute it.
Yeah. And I think, it is still revolutionary in the sense that it had backlash, right? So I don't know that it wouldn't have had backlash if it wasn't innovative, right? If that makes sense. So like, I think because of the response that it got and people criticizing the fact that kids shouldn't be able to watch this. Well, kids shouldn't be watching it. But I mean, like access to it, like this shouldn't be on TV because they're talking about these things that are relatively taboo. Like that shows you that it was kind of groundbreaking. Even if there were maybe things like that before, it wasn't like that, and it wouldn't have had the response that it had if it wasn't being something different or innovative.
Right. 100%. And like, even like Samantha Jones, the character of Samantha Jones, it's like, she is the most like powerful, sexual, like doesn't care, has sex like a man. And she's also the most loyal best friend to all of them. Like if you line them up and you're like, who's there for everybody the most? It's her. So it's like in like traditional media at the time, it was like those two things can't exist together. Now, thank God, we have so many shows that are like, they show so many flaws of people and messiness. And like, you're like, can I like this person? Because I kind of like this person, So, but at the time it was huge. It's just, and it's just so, the writing is just so good in the original series. It's so funny. And like when the movies came out and now the reboot, it kind of like took on a life of its own of like, almost ostentatious, right? Like the money and the fashion and all of this stuff. So that's why I love going back to the series, and because it's just like, especially season 1 and 2, it's like a grittier New York. It's like, even though these women are fabulous and have great wardrobes, it's still like a grittier New York. And with like real people, friends in their lives, like we all have with problems that like they're coming over for dinner and then they're like, this is going to make no sense. I have to vent to you about it. That's why I love the series so much. I love the movies too, but I love the first movie.
I think at its core, it's, it's about womanhood. And I also think there's something to be said about like the concept of just friendship in general, right? And like, what does it mean to be a friend and to go through things and have these trials and tribulations within and outside of your community, but relying on your community. But I think in some of the episodes too, like they also do a good job of like showing that regardless of having your good friendship circle, like sometimes like you have to go through your own shit on your own sometimes, right? Like you can't also rely upon these people. Like sometimes you just have to be like, you have to take responsibility for being a better you. And so I think one of the things that some friendship shows don't do a good job of, it's like, oh, your friends are your everything, or they're going to be there to solve your problems. But this show like also has moments of like, oh no, Samantha or Carrie or whomever, like you have to take ownership and realize the
Yeah.
repercussions of what
Your
you're
actions.
doing. To
Yeah, and they
your own
fight
shit.
about that all the time too,
Yeah.
and like call each other out all the time. So all of those ingredients plus the honest conversations they were having, which girls have, which is like, I have to talk to you about something that happened. Like, you know, like all of those things. I was like, what is this show?
Yeah.
I went to a concert a couple weeks ago and I was bored because I was waiting in line because it was general admission. And so the person I went with, we were just doing like movie trivia. We were looking up on our phones, like random trivia to ask each other. And I was like, find the hardest Sex in the City trivia, Google it and find it and ask me the questions and I'll see if I know. And I got them all right.
No way.
I got them all right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's just so good. It's so fun.
Has any feelings you've had towards it or have any viewpoints you've had on the show evolved as you've grown? Like, have you maybe like not so what I'm thinking, and you can kind of fill in the blanks a little bit, is like, were there stories that maybe didn't resonate with you, but now that you've had a certain life experience now are like, oh my gosh, that hits home so much more than it had before?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I started watching it in high school, carried on obviously through college and rewatches and friends and hanging out. I made Alex watch all of it. And my mom and I watched all of it together. So as I've become different versions of me, as I've gotten older, 100%. Like in high school, I thought Carrie was the best. She went shopping. She was fun. Screw everybody else who isn't as fabulous as her. You know, like that's how I felt. I didn't know very much. And then college, you know, when I started dating more seriously in my 20s, like different storylines started resonating with me and certain ones seemed not as important anymore. And then now that I'm 30 and I'm realizing I'm like, oh, I'm getting close to the age that they are in the show. I think when the show starts, I think they're maybe like 32 or 33 because they turn 34, 35 and 36 in the show. As I'm inching towards the same age as them, it's like you're having conversations with people either about marriage or having kids or families or what's important to you or what is stressing you out in a relationship that you didn't think was ever really going to matter when you were younger and now it matters. And then naturally, sometimes my brain will think of like, this is just like when Charlotte and Harry were and that I didn't even like was probably, it touched me at a certain point, you know, but it didn't register as a personal problem I was having. So, and then also now I think obviously Carrie's selfish and not a great friend to people. And yes, fabulous, but like she's pretty self-involved in a real way. Like we all know people like that that we still adore, you know what I mean? So like you realize those things and qualities, but yeah, mainly with how talking to like partners or relationships, that's what's evolved with me as I've gotten older, that I now recognize why they were issues or big deals on the show or frustrating on the show. Yeah. Is inching towards all of that. So
I think it's crazy and I think awesome to revisit shows for that reason is your life experiences change. Yeah. And even as you get older, like I may not have thought of some of the more adult storylines as I'm kind of going through some of these shows. And then you're after having heartbreak or after having experience like career struggles, you know, and then seeing people go through that stuff, you're like, oh, like it hits like because you can relate on a more personal level.
And it's like there was an episode where Carrie's like having to like face her finances and face how irresponsible she's been with her finances because she's like kind of in a tough spot and having to make a decision about something. So it's like now I'm like, oh my God, I understand. Or like
been there, girl.
Or like deciding if you have to like if you're in a place in your life to receive like a wonderful partner that's like for forever. And it's like, but am I in this place that I want that right now? And it's like that happens on the show. You know, like all of these things that you don't realize are so nuanced when you're watching it. And then as you grow up and you're starting to experience it. Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, no wonder they're so stressed and exhausted.
Yeah. I have to say it's like a thank you of sorts, right? Unrelated to Sex and the City, but as you said that, it reminded me. But like, there's been a couple times that I think like you've just thrown these like relationship nuggets at me that have just been like, oh, like it hit me like at such a core level. And one of those was like, I think we were just venting, talking to each other one time. And I don't remember if it was actually about you or more in the abstract, but you said something along the lines of like, I don't know if I'm the person that I want my forever partner to meet or something along those lines. And I was like, oh, that like hit at such a like core level. And I think you see that in multiple times. Like some people say wrong place, wrong time. And I'm sure like it happens in TV all the time. But I think like recognizing that within yourself, I think can be very difficult and aspirational, because it's like at least you're aware of it and can work towards it. But yeah, as you said that, it reminded me of like just that line that it was just like,
but it's,
Veronica.
it's true. And it's a bummer because there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's interesting to see like relationships that I've had where like I was upset about something, cut 2 years later, I'm in a relationship where it's like flipped and then I'm doing it. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's just like on Sex and the City. So, it's just, and it's all such a good show to revisit. It's just such a good like comfort food show. Yeah. Aside from its issues that didn't age well.
Yes. And casting issues.
And the fact that Carrie was a pretty closed-minded sex writer. Like she's a sex writer, but like she's pretty judgmental about a lot of things, which don't go hand in hand. Yeah. So aside from those things, it's just such a fun. It's so good.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's get on to your last one here, Miss Olivia Wilde. Tell me all about your love for Olivia Wilde and kind of what that intro is and what you're fascinated by.
Yeah, so Olivia Wilde, the reason she's on there is she was my first kind of, same with like it's like all of these things, right? It's like your first like light up moment about something, and then you find that there's so many more things like that, right? And so for her, it's someone that was an actress that decided she wanted to do more within the industry and started directing and producing and having a company. As I got older and as I started recognizing more, paying attention more to films or women that were actresses or also actresses that now want to do more and have more control over what they're doing. So Olivia Wilde for me was the first like, oh, you can do this. And then you start seeing like Margot Robbie has her production company and is producing amazing films. Reese Witherspoon has hers where she's optioning amazing books. Drew Barrymore does it. Emerald Fennell directed Promising Young Woman. So she was also an actress in The Crown and I'm sure many other things that I haven't seen. So now I can recognize all of it and I can hear them. Whereas mainly probably before I knew it was an option to do all of these things within the same career, I wouldn't have recognized that they were there and working in that way. So Olivia Wilde, I mean, as I'm sure people know, and if they don't, was an actress in so many things, House, so many movies, The OC. And she was always just kind of like a great, like steady actress. And even she said on, I think it was the off-camera show with Sam Jones, she was like, people kept telling me like, this project is it. This is going to blow you up. This is going to put you there. And she's like, and it never happened. Like it got me recognition and it got me work and people knew who I was, but it was never like the thing people were saying was going to happen to me. And then she did a movie, an independent, I forget what it's called, but it's an independent movie with Kid Cudi. And I don't know if it was directed or just DP'd by Reed Morano, who's a female cinematographer. And I'm not sure if she directed it as well. I'll have to look it up. But I think she found like a kinship to this woman and noticed her making decisions behind the camera. And it caused her to want to explore it more from what I know that she said in interviews. And so she started directing music videos and she directed like an Edward Sharpe video. She directed a Red Hot Chili Peppers video. And then she started looking at scripts and then she did Booksmart. And then which is an amazing movie.
Phenomenal.
And now she's kind of set up into like a groove of it, of being a respected director. And that's something that I've always wanted to explore. And I think this also has to do with going back to like special features, like seeing that there's more to do. And she mentions in an interview that like she never liked it when she would be on set acting and they would be like, okay, thank you. And we'll come get you when we need you again. Like you can go in your trailer now and be quiet and we'll come get you. And then we're going to take you back. And she said she hated that feeling because she was just waiting around. Because you are. And like when I've been on sets, like I'm just waiting for someone to tell me what's going on. And she would always look at the director and all these people making the decisions or asking questions about how something would look. And she was like, no, but I want to do that. I want to see, I want to find out why they're asking that. And that I related to so much when she said it. I was like, that's how my mind works. Like I am not good. While I love acting and while I love exploring and the performing part of it is like, it cannot be like it. And I knew something in me was thought that I wanted, that I didn't know what it was, but I was like, this one thing by itself will not fulfill me.
Yes.
This one thing is very fun for me and exciting and fulfilling in its own way, but there's more muscles I want to work. So that I fully get, because when I've been on sets, I've thought that. I'm like, God, I hate that I'm just waiting for someone to come get me when like I can be offering so many opinions about things. And so that kind of opened my eyes to, in a relatable sense, an actress who was working, who then wanted to do more, who was super cool, obviously. And even directing, like Alex, my brother, like wants to be a writer and a director. I do not have the mindset to write. I've just never taken to it. I don't have the ability, but directing, my brain has always understood. Like I'll see shots when I read something. I'll see like how it could look good in a shot. I don't know the dialogue that's going to be there, but I can see how it'll look good. And that's something I've always wanted to explore. I have a girlfriend here who's an amazing director, and she directs music videos, and she came from acting. And now she's directing a feature, and she's always been someone so inspirational to me, who I like bounce idea questions off of, or advice and things like that. So when I saw Olivia Wilde's journey, and I was just kind of noticing it, like she also produced a documentary that was like on the Ebola crisis. And I'm like, that's what I want to do, is I want to have all of these things where acting is still this fun, great, fulfilling experience, but I can still do all these other things. Specifically directing and like producing. And so that's definitely why she's on there, is because that woke my brain up to another alternative.
Yeah, and the good thing is just doing it sometimes, and I think you've had the opportunity to do so, right? Even family projects, so to speak, with Alex, but you're still doing the work, right? More so than someone who's still maybe even just dreaming and wishing they had the opportunity to produce. So I think it's like, take time to also appreciate that,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that like I relate to in music school, that like I think a lot of the reason I had some of the successes that I had is everyone who would just be practicing all the time. It's just like, oh, I'm practicing because I wish I could go play. I was just playing, I was just like, someone asked me to go do some gig. I wasn't thinking about whether or not it paid me. I wasn't thinking about if it was prestigious enough.
Right.
I was just like going to play, and that got me more opportunities to do it. So I think like the fact that you're taking the steps to just like, you are producing things and you are working in this fashion, that's the first step, right? Is just getting and having those opportunities. So I think it's something to remind yourself of too.
I know. I mean, that's like where like imposter syndrome comes in. I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not, I mean, that to me is like the long-term goal. And even when I was on set for a commercial that I booked, my brain was like listening and watching and being like, that's weird that they said that, because of, I can't help it. And even doing JJ with my brother Alex, like I was so stressed, but there's zero chance I would have not done it. Like there's zero chance I would have let someone else do it. Like I need to be involved too much to allow it. And then when I moved here for the first year, I was a producer, and I produced special events where it was all troubleshooting, and it was all double checking everything and getting on emails, and like that I understand. And so if I can like marry all of those things, acting, directing, producing, and even producing things that I'm not in, obviously is the goal.
That's the goal
to me. TBD. TBD.
You'll make it happen.
I have to drop some shifts at bartending to have some time for it.
Well, awesome, Veronica. We will go ahead and get you out of here. But before we do, we ask everyone 5 rapid fire questions to send you out. So first question here. If you could be on any reality TV show, which one would you choose?
Amazing Race.
Amazing Race. That's a good one. With Alex?
I don't know. We'll have to audition family members to see who wouldn't hold me back the most.
Mark, yeah. Cliff? If people have never consumed any of your pop 5, what's the one you'd want them to go experience right now?
Special features of DVDs, and Selena equally.
Okay, Selena equally with special features. You can watch Selena and then watch the special features.
Exactly.
There we go. Thinking back on your own performances, whether it's back in your theater days or behind the camera, what's a favorite performance moment for you, and what's something that immediately comes to mind?
I mean, definitely JJ, because I acted in it and had such a hand in helping make it happen. So that one right now.
When we were shooting, do you think there was like a scene or anything that you remember where you just like feel good and really good about the performance?
Probably the bed scene the second day, because that one was the most
animated.
Animated, yeah. And having no dialogue made it really difficult. And I had to trust Alex a lot in directing me because it's all reaction.
Yeah.
So that one, I thought, yeah, that one sticks out.
That was a fun day.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Super stressful. Super fun.
Talking about either in the producing, directing phase, right? Who's someone that you'd love to work with? Whether that's you are a director and you'd love to work with an actor, or you are an actor and you'd love to work with someone as a director. Who is just someone on a checklist bucket list for Veronica to be able to work with here in your career?
I would love to like shadow Olivia Wilde, to be honest with you, in all of it. Or shadow any of the other women that I mentioned before. And then also as an actor, I love Jasmine Cephas Jones she did so much theater. She was in Hamilton. Now she's on Blind Spotting, the series. And I follow her career. And so Jasmine Cephas Jones, I think would be really cool to work with.
Amazing. All right. And last question, Veronica, what advice would you give a past version of yourself?
Don't think too much. Like once you have an idea and you're deciding if you should do it, give yourself 5 minutes and make a decision.
Yeah.
Because I still struggle with that, with hesitating.
Because you would take longer than 5 minutes?
I would take longer. I would overanalyze. I would ask everybody their opinion for 4 weeks before I made any kind of moves. And I still do. And that's, what I'm trying to work on. So I would tell them that. And I would tell her to just chill the fuck out. It's going to be fine.
Fair. Awesome. That's your mother as a therapist approved sentiment. Chill the fuck out.
Chill the fuck out. Make a decision.
Yeah.
You don't need 25 people's opinions before you do.
Awesome. Well, Ronnie, where can people follow you? Anything you want to promote at the moment? Anything for people to go give you love?
I would just like to promote that I need roles. So
if you have a movie,
or if you have an agent, if you have a manager that needs somebody, let me know. No, but we can. JJ's not even available to watch because it's still private. So TBD, we're working on something else and we're writing it.
Yes.
My Instagram is my full name, Veronica Deeds. It's very inactive, and so just. Or on My Pop 5.
My Pop 5, that's right.
That's the current thing that you can see that is happening.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much. I love you so much.
I love you so much.
Yeah, take care and have a good rest of your day.
I love you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. Veronica is one of my dearest friends, and I'm so thankful anytime she can stop by. So, Veronica, thank you again for joining. Audience, I hope you enjoyed our conversation with her. She will be back for more Our Pop 5s and other special episodes, as she is an integral part of our operation. That being said, if you love the show and you want to give us some support, please follow us on Instagram at MyPop5. Keep listening to the show. Share with your friends. We always love hearing from you. We'll see you next week. But until then, what's your Pop 5?